Hello, Laternal University students, HCIT4343. Just want to give a little quick blurb on your Unit 2 assignment there, where we look at system procurement and implementation. And it'd be easy to say that that's probably the most important part of the entire health information system life cycle. And I don't think that would be an understatement, because if you think about it, when healthcare organizations purchase health information technology or health information systems, we are talking about a huge capital budget expenditure. And as a result of that, it's often the result of strategic planning. And so strategic planning is when decision makers, managers within the organization. And remember, when we say managers, we mean everyone from the line supervisors through managers, directors, vice presidents, what we call the C suite, CEO, CIO, CMIO, CNO, Chief Learning Officer, Chief Medical Information Officer, Chief Executive Officer, and also members of the board. So the chairman, the vice chairman, those are all managers. And at some point, they all participate in the strategic planning process. And some organizations, such as the ones that I've worked for, particularly Healthcare Partners, which at the time I worked for them, we were the largest ambulatory, physician-owned ambulatory organization in the state of California. And so our strategic planning process, there was a 10-year process, but every year the executives would look at a 3-year window to make sure that all of the assumptions and goals and strategies were still aligned with the constantly changing healthcare environment. So kind of fast forward to the topics today, which is procurement and implementation. When you purchase or lease or however you acquire a health information system, such as an electronic health record, you're looking at millions of dollars. And so what usually happens is a group of stakeholders across the entire organization, they get together and they determine what the requirements are for the system. And that's going to affect everyone from the emergency department, medical, surgical, telemetry, rehab, all of the different components, because that EHR system or that HIT system, it's usually the main operating system, and then everything else is an extension of that. So once decision makers determine these are our requirements, they will send out a request for proposal, RFP, or an RFQ, request for quotation. And they'll send that out to as many vendors as they believe that they want to vet. After they get the initial information from the vendors, they'll go over that. They'll do a gap analysis to make sure that the vendor solution also meets their internal requirements. And they may invite 2 to 3 vendors to come in, do a formal presentation, and perhaps from those vendors, there may be 1 or 2 of those vendors where they want something called a proof of concept. And that proof of concept means that we want to see how your solution works on the ground and ideally in our environment. When I was the EHR program manager for a company called Coast Healthcare Management that eventually was purchased by Tenet Health, when we were vetting our health information health information exchange, we were vetting out vendors for that technology. One of the things that we did for due diligence is we got recommendations from their current clients that already had the product on the ground and was operating that within their systems. And so after the decision makers then decide that, yes, we're going to go with company X and solution X, then comes the fun part of implementation. There's usually two forms of implementation here as we conclude. There's usually two forms of implementation. There is the gradual, or what I'll call strategic implementation, and then there's the big bang. So on the first form of implementation, let's say if you've got 10 different departments in your hospital that will all eventually get on the system, you'll start with each department. And ideally, the best practice is that you'll start with the smaller department with a small number of users. You'll get the product implemented, and then you will determine what the lessons learned were from that implementation, and you will incorporate those lessons learned when you move to the next uh, department to implement the system. The whole idea is ultimately, once you get 2 or 3 implementations under your belt and you have incorporated the lessons learned, you now have a set of best practices. And when you go to implement your system in some of the larger departments, some of the more critical departments, you've already got all of the kinks kind of worked out of the system, and you have more fluid implementations. And then there's the Big Bang Theory. And the Big Bang Theory is exactly what it sounds like. It is everyone gets on the system all at the same time. And, at ground zero, we flip the switch, and whatever issues or fragment or disjointed processes come as a result of that, then we just implementation folks work through those in real time in real environments. And so it'd be easy to say that one style is better than the other, and perhaps the Big Bang isn't the most ideal way to implement a multi-million-dollar clinical or health information systems, but sometimes that's just the environment that we face as managers within the system, and sometimes that's going to be based on the constraint of the organization, and sometimes that constraint is financial, because they don't necessarily have the time or the money to pay for the training to do it a different way, if you will, or sometimes it's just out of necessity because the organization is under pressure, either internal or external, to get something implemented, similar to what we've seen over the past couple years with government mandates for not only the implementation, but the meaningful use of clinical information systems. And then finally, after your system is implemented and it is live for anywhere from 60 to 90 days, you transition past the implementation phase and you go into the adoption phase. And that's a little bit beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about this week. But I do want you to know that when we talk about adoption, what we are really looking at is that systems that were formerly manual systems, that were non-electronic systems, they were paper-based systems. The more that you can get those systems integrated and incorporated in your health information technology infrastructure, the higher your adoption rates and the more efficient and effective your clinical care delivery will be after you have successfully implemented and adopted your technology. Okay, I look forward to reading your Unit 2 assignments. Remember, I am available all weekend for one-on-one office hours, so please don't hesitate to email me, text me, send me a voicemail, and let's set up a one-on-one session so I can give you the support you need and get your questions answered. God bless you, and I'll see you in week 2.